a little more about what the situation was before we started talking.
From the moment that she was born, she's a very physical person. She loves like closeness and connecting. Like we could never set her down, even when she was awake. Like she just wanted to be held. And from literally newborn forward, she would cry. If she was set down, she'd cry, if I needed to cook dinner. So I started wearing her all the time, which was fine. But when I was on maternity leave, it was fine. And it was fine when she was a newborn. And we had to hold her. We had to hold her to sleep. So every nap was a contact nap. It's literally the only way she would sleep. Night times were contact. And my husband's a heavy sleeper, so he was too afraid to hold her. So it was me every night, which is really what she wanted anyways, because she wanted to nurse as well. But I mean, I think when I reached out to you, she was over a year old, I think, or just about a year old, and still contact nap, contact sleeping, which meant I wasn't sleeping. And it was rough all around. She was up to like 10, 11 at night. It was crazy.
And so, I think sometimes as moms, we suffer in some silence sometimes around things, or we tell ourselves, oh, maybe it's not as bad as all that, but I think what's important when we're talking about sleep, and it's always been a goal of mine to really kind of change the narrative and just be like, you know what, let's stop normalizing the fact that we're sleep deprived and that it's part of a badge of honor or rite of passage. To be a mother means you have to sacrifice, your own sanity, health, and well-being because you had children. So dive a little deeper if you're willing, Amy, and tell us like what was like this year like for you with like, there's something very lovely about holding a baby when they're sleeping. Absolutely. There's nothing better, in fact, especially with little newborns. But a year in and you're still having to hold her for every nap and through the night, like what's showing up for you emotionally?
Just utter exhaustion. So, I mean, I'm blessed to work for a great company and I got 4 months of, 100% paid maternity leave. But once I went back to work, it was less thrilling to hold her for all of her naps and at night because I wasn't getting good sleep. I can accomplish a whole lot, but I cannot do it without sleep. Right. And so, I mean, I was hitting the wall. My husband was feeling the same because he really picked up the heavy lifting during the day. He's a real estate agent, so his work is flexible and he wants to keep the baby home with him. But he wasn't able to get anything done either because, nap time is when that's the only alone time he would have during the day. So he was getting nothing done. And we really had no couple time either. I mean, now she goes to bed like by 7:30 and we've got, several hours each evening where we can be together and talk about adult things and, do adult things. And we had no marriage, it felt like, for the first year. And we were both sleep deprived. And the older kids would have to be quiet or go hang out somewhere else because the baby was sleeping on the couch, in my arms. So it just affected everybody. So everyone in the house has a better life now.
Yeah. Well, I would even imagine with older kids, like one of the things I see a lot is like when people have multiple kids and they're all roughly the same age that, the older kids get a bit jealous of the baby because the baby's getting a lot of attention. And maybe we don't feel like older kids have the same needs or feelings, but I would imagine that they were all feeling a little, I mean, yeah, they love her and it's exciting to have a baby sister in the house, but also, this baby's getting a lot of attention.
So the 3 teenage boys are pretty much over, needing my physical attention or, daily attention the same way. My daughter really struggled though. She just turned 11 2 weeks ago. So she was, 9, 10, and she was my baby for all those years until Brooklyn came along. So she definitely noticed and, you used to snuggle with me, or why can't you come, tuck me in and sing me some songs like you used to? Why is it always about Brooklyn? So we've had more time for her too, and more uninterrupted time, because Brooklyn loves her sister, but it's hard for her to have that free time or free mom time. So once Brooklyn goes to bed, it's better for my daughter, Chloe, too.
Oh, that's great news. So when we started talking, I think you emailed me originally just with some questions. Do you remember like what your biggest concern or hesitation or worry about taking some steps to help Brooklyn sleep better?
My one worry was her room is right next to my daughter's. And so any sort of like cry it out method would mean, and Chloe is a very light sleeper. So, anytime that we would try and have broken sleep in her crib, she would instantly, scream in tears. And then that would, wake Chloe up. So I really couldn't, I actually thought like, this just isn't possible. I'm going to have to suffer for another couple of years until she's old enough to reason with. So, being able to do an approach without letting her cry, because I mean, even if you take the Chloe sleep part of it out of the equation, like I just can't hear my babies cry. Like biologically, like it hurts me. And we had tried it on our own because again, I was not a new mom and I, had put other children down to sleep in their cribs and not had an issue. So I thought, maybe I should keep trying or tweak this or tweak that. And just nothing was working. And it was tears, crocodile tears and screaming, incessant. Like she wouldn't stop. It'd be, 5-10 minutes. And we'd give up every single time. And so when I had seen, your program, I thought, well, let's give it a whirl. I got nothing to lose and hopefully a lot to gain.
Absolutely. So I think, again, I'm just going by memory here, but I think it went like you were nervous, obviously. And this is something that I really love to see because I get to be there with you through the process as you get started and remember you being pretty nervous going into night one.
We both, and I remember telling my husband, like, hopefully this wasn't wasted money, but it probably is. Like, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do all the things, but I don't think it's going to work for her. Like she's got red hair. She's stubborn. She's wise beyond her month. We had tried so many times already and I was expecting the worst and I was so pleasantly surprised at how easy it was. I, again, can't thank you enough.
Oh, so good to hear. Well, tell us a little bit about how the process went. Once you got started and you kind of had a plan of action and, I'd pep talked to you, we can do this, we're going to get her there. What did it kind of look like as far as like how many nights until she was sleeping better and things like that?
So I was personally pretty removed from kind of the nighttime process. Like once we put her down, I was pretty much done. So because I was still nursing her and she was such a huge fan of nursing and that was really kind of her, what's the word? Her sleep prop. So I had told my husband, like, you're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting at nighttime. And so I reviewed everything with him and, came up with here's what you have to do. The first night, there was some tears the first night, but even night one was better than I thought. And she really didn't cry for as long as I thought. And we stuck to that routine. And I think by like probably night 3 or 4, there was not a lot of issues. She, tiny fussing, laying her down, a little bit of whining, but she pretty much got it after, I would say, probably night 4. There was a period of time where she decided that she hated baths because she knew that it was bath and then we're getting ready for bed. And luckily, and they were her favorite, and baths were her favorite. But I think that was just kind of a transitional thing. She's back to loving baths and she can now say bath. So anytime she walks past the bathtub, she'll ask if she can get in the bath. And it's no longer a struggle there. So it's all worked out.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about that because that's common, especially with this age group. I find that they're just so, it's a testament to how smart they are and that we often don't give them enough credit for how much they are understanding. But it is common for the 1-year-old to realize like, okay, I know when we start the bath, when I get my pajamas on, if I have that last feed before bed, if we read books, then that means I'm going to this place that I'm not used to going to yet. And so there usually is some protest during the routine, but what it really just means is that they're aware. They understand that these steps mean I'm going to go to this place that I'm not ready for yet. I'm not comfortable with yet. And so I'm happy that you trusted me in the fact that, I reassured you a couple of times, she'll come back to loving bath. She will. She will. Yeah. I don't know how long it's going to take for her to get there, but she will eventually return to her love affair with the bath. So, and that's just, it's such a reward to see that happen. And I think you also mentioned recently that she was happy, like she wanted to go to bed. Like she was the one saying, hey, let's go, Mom. Put me in this crib.
Yeah, she'll literally start saying that night and or like point up the stairs as she's saying that night. No tears when we put her in. Giant smile. gives big fluffy baby kisses. It's like a completely different person. We love you.
I'm glad. I do love it. I'm so glad you love it. And, I think that's really reassuring. What I hope that this is good news and reassurance for anyone that's watching, that this isn't something you have to suffer through night after night. This is not something you have to wait until they're old enough to negotiate. And I don't name an age when a child's old enough to negotiate with. I haven't met that age yet. So it's not something you just have to struggle with and suffer with night after night after night, that there is something you can do. And the rewards of putting in some work and some effort and, asking your husband to get on board and help you out and take the heavy lifting, a few nights of that is hard work, but the payoff or the end result is, months so far of good sleeping for her and rewards for the whole family. So that's my goal in, sharing these stories, is that the reward that comes from teaching a child to sleep well is, I like to call it the gift that keeps on giving.
100%. We literally, even to this day, like everyone, we'll be talking, my husband and I, and we're so grateful. And honestly, wish I would have tried it so much sooner, but I had faith in my parenting abilities and, kept thinking it's a phase, or when she gets just a little bit older. And once she was coming up to that year mark, I'm like, this can't continue. We've got to do something. But I really wish I would have researched it much, much sooner.
I hear that a lot. Tell us a couple of the fun things or the perks that have come from having her sleeping so well.
Honestly, just having alone time with my husband. Even just, sitting in the backyard by, the fire pit and having a glass of wine together. We literally did not have any alone time for really that first year. Hardly, it felt like we didn't even have, time for a conversation. So that was huge. I feel like we got our marriage back. And the first year is so hard anyways, even when the baby sleeps by themselves. So just having the free arms and that freedom to, have a relationship again was huge. And I would say just to your point, the time with my daughter, Chloe, that uninterrupted time with my daughter, Chloe, we were actually wrapping Christmas presents last night as soon as Brooklyn went down to sleep. And we were sitting in the spare room and wrapping Christmas presents. And she goes, Mommy, I'm so glad Brooklyn sleeps in her crib now. We wouldn't have been able to do this before. Because,
right.
She was up till, 10, 11 o'clock, whenever we could finally get her to settle down. But she's a finicky sleeper. So if there's the TV on or lights on, or she hears her siblings doing anything, she's like, I'm not sleeping. This is way more fun. I'm going to go hang out with them. So having her in her room, her dark, quiet room is really been huge.
Honestly, I've been doing this 20 years and it never gets old or boring to hear how transformational sleep is, because it is the foundation for a happy and healthy life. So if people aren't getting it, then you're right. Everyone's suffering, even maybe not directly with sleep deprivation, but the family still suffers, right? Because not everyone's their best. Parenting is hard enough, right?
If mom's not her best, everyone does suffer. So I think my teenage son, probably 2 or 3 weeks after this, he goes, Mom, you're so much nicer now that Brooklyn goes to bed early. So there's another benefit. I'm nicer to the teenagers.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story with us. And again, I'm just so thrilled. And do you have any questions for me? Holidays are approaching. Do you have any questions about how to navigate holidays?
I don't. We even in the last couple months were able to leave Brooklyn with my sister and brother-in-law for a little quick weekend getaway. And it was really only a month or so after starting this. And so I thought, how are we going to do this with a pack and play in a strange house? And I just wrote down, step by step what her routine was, and they followed it down to the order of the books that we read. And it was a non-issue. They sent me pictures of Brooklyn sleeping in her pack and play, 0 tears. So I think we can handle any of it.
Got this. Yeah, you got
this.
it. All right. You're empowered and ready. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And Amy, give that little cutie a kiss for me. And I just really appreciate you sharing your story with all of us.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dana. Always appreciate you.
Happy holidays. Bye.
You too.